And I think there's one little formula I believe in so much. Perseverance plus passion plus pride equals win. I've often said pride in a person is the ability to persevere. To respect all the competition, but fear none. Dedication and determination. The ability to have the drive and the desire at that crucial moment when you have to perform. You have that, you're gonna win.
Cameron Indoor Stadium. That is the site of game day today. The Cameron Crazies out heavy for UNC Duke. Tar Heels in town, and of course, this matchup, one of the most storied rivalries in college basketball. We'll get you ready for that. Welcome to Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. Sam Ravech in the building. Christine Williamson, hi, hello. Sam, how you feeling? How you doing?
I'm doing great. No football today, by the way. So we are all college basketball.
It's weird.
36 days until Selection Sunday. So time's running out to make that impression.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. Okay, so we have a loaded show today. We have Myron Medcalf joining us very shortly. We also, if you guys don't know anything about the Speedo Guy, we're going to talk to him and we'll tell you the story about it. We'll talk a little bit about that Duke-UNC matchup as well. But let's take a look at all of the games that we have today, Sam. A bunch of games today. A couple of good ones in the Big 12. You know the Big 12, the best college basketball conference this season. Kansas going to Hilton Coliseum, Texas going to Kansas State. And if you have any late plans tonight, go on and cancel them for that West Coast Conference matchup, Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So some good ones today, right, Sam?
Big game out west. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that one. That's going to be super exciting to watch. St. Mary's has been so good this year, despite what the computer numbers may say in the AP poll. They've been really good, so that'll be one to watch. All
right, so I mentioned that Myron Medcalf would be joining us very shortly, and he is here right now. Myron, so good to see you. Happy Saturday morning. I want to start in the Big 12 Conference. I mentioned that Kansas-Iowa State matchup. What are you looking at number 9 taking on number 12 today?
You know, it feels like a must-win situation for Iowa State. 2-4 in the last 6 games. Just have lost a lot of the momentum they'd acquired through January. They got to get back on the right track, and I think they'll play that way. That building will be wild. I've been there many times. They're going to come to play, but Kansas has found its mojo a little bit. You know, they lost 3 in a row to some good teams. They beat Kentucky last weekend, and then they beat their rival Kansas State. So I think they've got the confidence back that they can be a team that can defend their national championship again.
Yeah, Myron, to your point, you have Texas at the top of the Big 12 right now. Then you got 4 teams tied for second place with Iowa State, TCU, Kansas, and Kansas State. And you got Baylor right there as well. So it's anybody's game. Obviously, those numbers are going to change today with the matchups and whatnot. We talk about Iowa State, though. Melted down like Phil Mickelson at Winged Foot in 2006. I mean, it was a silly second half on Monday against Texas Tech. But look, we know the Cyclones have lost a couple. They have not lost at home this year as well, which I think is important to mention. It's anybody's game right now in the Big 12. It's so exciting.
That's why the Big 12 Conference is the best conference in college basketball. Myron, you mentioned that win over Kansas State. Kansas actually had a visitor in the locker room postgame. Check this out.
Listen up, fellas. Hey, hold on, listen up, guys. It's lovely to get 1, baby, but it's even better to get 2. Go ahead and get that thing, dog.
Travis Kelce went to Cincinnati. I don't know if he's a Jayhawks fan, but I mean, that's a solid game to go to. Do we feel like a little bit of the Super Bowl mojo is rubbing off on this Kansas team, Myron?
I'm sure it was a cool sight, for everybody in the building to have Travis Kelce there. I did see that there were some fans who were mad and felt like he shouldn't have cheered for either team. They're both in Kansas, and he should have stayed neutral. But that was a cool sight to see, him going and showing up to a college basketball game after getting to the Super Bowl.
But Manhattan, a little bit further away from Kansas City than Lawrence. So I feel like he's made his, he's kind of made his claim on KU. What do you think about that?
No, anytime you can get Travis Kelce to come in, drop some knowledge, that's always cool. Look, we know that the last school to win back-to-back championships was Florida to do it in 06 and 07. Kansas has the pieces to do it this year. I'm a little bit questionable on their depth right now. I think that's one of the biggest questions for them, but they have the talent to do it, no question. And Travis Kelce, I mean, you got him on your side heading to a Super Bowl?
Hey, if he wins a Super Bowl after giving that speech in that locker room,
legendary.
then that's definitely rubbing up on them for sure. Okay, let's go to the number 1 team in the land, Purdue, taking on Indiana. What are you looking at in that matchup?
Well, I just did Indiana's game for TV. Trayce Jackson-Davis is the real deal. He might be the only player in America, along with Jalen Wilson, that has a chance to catch Zach Edey in the Wooden Award race. But Zach Edey has just been a monster. He is the most unstoppable force I've seen in college basketball since Zion Williamson. And I think Purdue is looking to continue the momentum against their rival. But Indiana's 4-1 in their last 5 games. Feel like they picked up some rhythm, even though they lost at Maryland on Tuesday. And I think it's going to be a battle. I mean, when these two teams get together in that building, Assembly Hall, I think that atmosphere will be second to none in college basketball today.
I'm with you there too, Myron. But I do question, outside of Trayce Jackson-Davis, is there a second consistent scorer for this Indiana team? We've seen them go quiet a little bit. Tough loss this week after winning 5 straight. Like you said, Assembly Hall is going to be nuts. And it is Zach Edey's world. It is Purdue's world right now. I think Purdue has the Big Ten title wrapped up in a bag, neatly in a bow right now. But until somebody can slow down or at least severely hamper Zach Edey, it is Zach Edey's world, and we're all living in it. 56 points over the last 2 games. He's averaging 22 on the season. I think far and away the player of the year leader right now.
That's what I was going to ask you, Myron. Do you feel like Zach Edey, friend of the show, by the way, he had him on our show a couple of weeks ago. Do you feel like he's the runaway winner for the best player in college basketball right now?
It feels like it. I mean, I vote in the Wooden Award race. He's been at the top of my list every time, and I think everybody's probably playing for second. Now, again, Trayce Jackson-Davis, you look at his numbers, he's done some phenomenal things in the last month. But I think Zach Edey is just way ahead of everybody, and I think he's going to win it probably with a wide margin.
I will say the X factor in this one, too, I think is Fletcher Lawyer, as it has been kind of all season. If Purdue can get those guys shooting from the outside, this is a completely different ball game. Anytime you go to Assembly Hall, though, you cannot count out those fans and this team. Look, upset alert, Myron. I think so. Anytime you go in there, it's an upset alert.
It's a rival game. It's a rivalry game, too. I mean, I've been in that building, for this game. Like, it's tough, and I think this is one of those moments where if you're Indiana, you want to prove to yourself that you're capable of making a run in March. You beat Purdue, your rival, in this moment, that's all the confidence you need going forward.
Yeah, Indiana also coming off a loss after winning 5 straight, so they don't want to go into a losing streak by any means. Okay, you mentioned the fact that rivalries are different. This rivalry is very different this year. Duke and UNC both unranked, so it doesn't look like it has in previous years. Obviously not like what it looked like last year. What are you looking for in this matchup?
I don't think these two teams like each other at all. I mean, if you look at what happened last year, and the way that, North Carolina sent Coach K into retirement, also beat him in his home finale. If you remember after that game, John Shire had some words with North Carolina staff. Chris Carrawell wouldn't shake hands with some of their coaches. I mean, there's some bad blood here. And I think this is the game that whoever wins is going to have sort of a great boost for the rest of the season. UNC, they've fallen from that number 1 spot. Duke's dealt with injuries. You win today, and it's almost like you get a fresh start if you can beat your rival in this game.
Yeah, look, ranked, unranked, this is one of the best rivalries in sports. But I do want to get your thoughts on this, Myron. Is this an anomaly, or is this something we're going to get used to seeing Duke and UNC playing against each other unranked?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the recruiting classes, I mean, there's some bad boys coming to both of these teams, and then I think you add the transfer portal. It's just hard to imagine a world where Duke and UNC don't have pretty good teams every year. But I do think college basketball has changed, and it's just more difficult to get talent. But in the years ahead, top recruiting classes, it's up to those coaches to see whether or not they can coach and develop those guys.
Right, but my furthering the point there, UNC and Duke, have those recruiting classes. They have not necessarily gone into the transfer portal like so many other schools have and gotten those Power 5 transfers. Duke has 1 Power 5 transfer on their team. UNC has 2, and really the main guy there is Pete Nance, who came over from Northwestern. So do you see them continuing to try and build from the bottom as the landscape of college basketball continues to change?
Yeah, I think they'll get, the best players. I think a lot of coaches are trying to get old. That's what you hear from coaches.
Right.
And the way to do that is through the transfer portal. The guys want to win now. And if you bring in that freshman class, it's hard to get sort of that immediate burst. Like 2 one-and-done classes have won national championships. Anthony Davis at Kentucky, and then that Duke team in 2015. All the other teams in the one-and-done era were veteran teams. So I think North Carolina and Duke will be more active in the transfer portal. But again, if you got access to top 10 lottery picks, you're going to go after those guys for sure.
What do you attribute? I think the lapse on UNC side is a little bit weird to me. When you think about Caleb Love, Armando Bacot, like guys still there on that squad. What do you attribute the lapse on UNC side to?
Yeah, I think we all got caught up in what they did in the postseason last year. But the way they're playing now, it's exactly what happened last year. They were up and down. They weren't consistent. They were kind of stumbling. You heard a lot of UNC fans who were going, okay, Hubert Davis, what's going on here? And then they got hot in March. And I think what we're seeing is a team that's been rather inconsistent in Hubert Davis's first years. They just made a run to the national championship game and had a chance to win it. But it's just hard when you have inconsistent shooting in a world where there are so many teams that have added veteran talent that if you're North Carolina, you don't go into every game as the most talented team or with a wide discrepancy in talent. It's just harder to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I mean, our friend Joe Lunardi, I think, has Duke as a 6 seed right now. Carolina as a 9 seed. We know Carolina was an 8 seed last year. We saw what they did going all the way to the Final Four. So, I mean, anything can happen. This game, I think, Myron, to me, is more being played for, trying to get that double bye in the ACC, right? I mean, that's going to be huge coming up for the tournament.
That'll be big. That'll be big. And again, these are 2 teams that if you get hot down the stretch, 1 seed line can be the difference for you. Being a 9 versus being an 8 can be a tremendous difference, as we saw last year in the NCAA tournament.
All right, Myron, enjoy all of the college basketball games. There's some good ones today, so have fun.
Thank you.
All right, Sam, I mean, we've mentioned this plenty of times, right? The fact that these 2 teams are unranked. Let's take a look at some numbers really fast, because it's not often that this happens. It's only happened 5 times since they were both ACC members, but it's interesting that this is the 3rd time it's happened in the last 5 seasons. The other 2 meetings came during the 2020-2021 season, so it's definitely been a thing that's more recent.
No question, and that's why I wanted to get Myron's thoughts on the transfer portal concept, because you look at Duke and you look at UNC, the pedigrees are there. Can they use the transfer portal like so many other teams have?
All right, we are now so excited to be joined by Jonathan Levitan, a student at Duke who's outside of Cameron Indoor, and he's also the editor for the Duke Chronicle. I mean, the fans sound and look hype. Obviously, every single game day when they have this rivalry between them and UNC, a lot of the students, they camp out. They've probably been out there for a long time. So what's the craziest thing that you've seen out there?
Yeah, the craziest thing we'll see out here is probably later today when these students are getting ready for the game. You said it. There's been about 1,500 students who have been out here for the last month or so, camping out, getting ready for today. It's cold out here, but people are just excited to get started, and I think game day is an added bonus.
I didn't look up the forecast for out there, but I want to tell you right now, it's not -4 degrees like it is in Bristol, Connecticut. So you guys are actually thriving.
No, it's not.
Believe me. Okay, so, this matchup is typically a really big one for both schools, but neither team is ranked this year. How do you feel like the community and students are feeling about this matchup this season?
Let's go, Duke! Let's go, Duke!
I think that both schools are really itching to get a win here. We've seen so far that both these teams started in the top 10, and it hasn't been smooth sailing so far. One of the big storylines today is that we've got John Shire in his first North Carolina matchup. We'll see how that goes for him against Hubert Davis and the Tar Heels. Duke hasn't lost at home this year, and I think the fans have been a big part of that. So we're just waiting to see how that goes.
So obviously, as you're a student there, you've been to these games before. What is your favorite thing about game day?
Favorite thing about game day has got to be just waiting to get in. I was part of this crowd last year for March 5th for Coach K's final home game. Obviously, that one didn't go the way that Duke fans wanted it to. I think that people are itching for redemption today, especially these fans here behind me, and the build-up to it is everything.
Okay, I'm so glad that you said that you've done this before, because I have never been a student that has camped out for any game. What is that experience like?
Well, the camp out experience, particularly for North Carolina, is a long one. A lot of these fans right behind me, they took a test in early January, and they tented until about Wednesday when their tents came down right from the spot where I'm standing. The experience is cold, at least by Durham standards. A lot of nights spent sleeping on turf, but today's the day that makes it all worth it. And depending on whether they win or not, it'll be really worth it.
Final question. How does one set up a tent to camp out for that amount of time?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
How does one set up a tent to camp out for that amount of time? Like, I would imagine you need a lot of things, especially since it's cold outside.
Yeah, so there are 12 students per group. You get about 10 square feet in K-ville or 100 square feet, and you have 10 people sleep in that tent per night. There are line monitors who really run the whole show around here, and they give out supplies in case it's needed. There are nightly checks. They'll ring a siren, and all the students will have to get out of their tents and prove that they're actually here. If you miss a line check or two, you're out, and your spot goes to somebody else. It's pretty cutthroat.
Oh my gosh, I could not imagine. Well, hopefully for your sake, you guys are celebrating at Shooters tonight. Good luck in the game.
Love dribbling, gets a screen, three, top of the key. Oh, he got it! And the Heels kick their rivals to the curb on their way to their 12th national title game.
It's now time for What If, covered by State Farm. So let's go back to last April, since this is the first UNC matchup, Duke matchup of the season. Last April, we got a classic one in the Final Four. Now, Tar Heels were an 8 seed. We didn't expect them to go that far, but they upset Baylor, they upset UCLA, ended St. Peter's Cinderella run, and there was Coach K's final season, Duke UNC. Duke a 2 seed. UNC ends up winning it. They go on to play Kansas in the final. No one expected them to be there.
Oh.
But let's go back to that matchup. What if Duke won that game?
I always love these what-if questions. This one may be the hardest that we've had so far this season, for a couple of reasons. One, you look at the run that both those teams had last year, and it was fantastic.
Right.
I still contend that Kansas would have won regardless who they played in the championship game. But you have to remember, UNC actually led by 15 at the half. They led by as many as 16 in the game. Kansas completed that comeback in the second half. I think it was the largest comeback since 1998 in a title game. So that was incredibly impressive. But then you kind of ask the question, all right, Duke had the best offense in the ACC last year. They averaged over 80 points per game. They also had one of the best second half defenses in the entire country. They had one of the better defenses in the ACC as well, but the second half they really turned it on. So I can see a path in which maybe you see Duke winning the game. I still think that Kansas would have won, but regardless, I think it was just an amazing run for both of those teams.
Yes, it was for sure. Caleb Love was huge in that matchup. He and his teammates this season at UNC played a game of toss-up. Take a look.
Caleb, for sure. Not no more. You ain't been late no more, but we just gotta go with you. I don't have no rituals. I just freestyle.
I need my nap.
What was the best dance? RJ. Me. You set yourself up for that.
All right, Sam, we teased this earlier in the show. We have a very iconic member of the Duke-UNC matchup joining us right now.
Who do we got?
So if you don't know the story, which I know you do, but maybe some people out there don't. 2003, UNC Duke at Cameron Indoor, and Patrick King is in the student section as UNC's Jackie Manuel is at the free throw line. We'll keep an eye on him. He just transformed into Speedo Guy. Manuel would miss both free throws. Oh my gosh. Coach K said it was inappropriate, so it never happened again. We're very excited to now be joined by the Speedo Guy himself, Patrick King. It's been 20 years, not to make you feel old, but it's been a minute. So excited to have you
Yeah, I've got plenty of things.
A little upset
Thank you very
that you're
much.
not in a Speedo. I mean, actually, I can't see, so maybe you are. But I want to ask you, how did this whole thing come about?
Great question. So y'all know that, first of all, thank you. This is a lot of fun. And I guess this is one of those decisions you make in college that just is going to perpetually haunt me for the rest of my life. So it was a lot of fun. Y'all know, I mean, it's an incredibly competitive thing to get into a Duke basketball game, even as a student. And so I was fortunate enough, I was a grad student technically, which meant that I was able to get access to a season pass. But even with a season pass, it's just open seating. You don't have assigned seating. And so for a day like a game like the UNC game, you still have to wait in line for a very long time to get a decent seat. And so my buddies and I showed up about 7:30 that morning for a 9 o'clock game. And to be honest with you, I was dozing off in a camping chair at about 7:30 when my buddy, it was Dan Rhodes and my cousin Jack came up, who I was in school with. They came up to me, woke me up and said, Dan Rhodes has an idea for you. And before you know what it is, I just need you to say yes. So I don't know. I guess being in grad school, you just sort of sign up for things like that. So that's what I did. And so then literally it was day of that we coordinated with other friends of ours that weren't there. And a friend of ours named Lisa found a Speedo and she delivered it to us. And I was literally getting, I guess, technically undressed and then dressed there, out on the lawn, out in front of camera.
Oh my goodness.
So I guess we should never say yes to anything before we know what we're going to be saying yes to. We know that Coach K said a very quick no to the idea, Pat. How did that kind of go down? Was there a conversation with you and Coach K that was like, nah, I don't think we should be doing this at our games? Like, how did that all go down?
So I actually heard about this because there was no conversation with Coach K, and I'm certainly far from that important that Coach K would have a conversation with me. But no, apparently, so the way we get tickets as grad students is we have one weekend prior to the basketball season that we would camp out for, I guess it was like 36 hours, something like that. And Coach K apparently, made an appearance, brought pizza for everybody. He's a super good guy. And but in his remarks about anticipating the season and looking forward to it, and fans are important, et cetera, kind of getting all the students hyped for the upcoming season. That's when he made these comments that he was like, and by the way, no more Speedos.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Also amazing moves. I'm really curious how you figured out that you should do those dance moves. But I want to ask you, is Speedo Guy still a part of your identity? If I were you, I would have like a picture of like one of those moves frozen in my, hanging in a picture frame in my home. Is that still a part of your identity at all?
Well, it's, I don't know that it's a part of my identity, except that it just comes up. I do find it remarkable that it still comes up in conversation about once every couple of weeks, which is amazing to me. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, but people still bring it up because they hear about it, through different people and that kind of thing. But no, I will say that the Speedo does live in the house, and we'll see if I don't know if the next generation is going to pick it up or not. But
oh my gosh, do you mean your kids? Do your kids know about this?
It's still around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be a good opportunity for you to meet my son. He was actually in that original video that we did. And he was only about 6 weeks at the time. I don't know if you remember me holding him in the very original video that y'all did.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Wow. Yeah. I can introduce him real quick if he wants to poke his head in here. Yeah.
Is that the Speedo?
It carries on.
Is that the Speedo?
Oh my God. Is the actual Speedo.
Oh my gosh, yes. You pass it down
Legacy.
from generation to generation. I love that. That's amazing.
That is
unbelievable.
Some people,
Some people have very important family heirlooms, things like that. We have Speedos in the King household. Yeah.
That is awesome. That is so cool.
Let me ask you this, Pat. I know if my family was watching that and friends were watching me go nuts wearing a Speedo at a college basketball game, they would call me or call a doctor really, really quickly to make sure I was okay. What was the reaction from your friends or family after they saw you doing that?
Great. Yeah, that's a great question. Except, you got to take into account that you're on Duke's campus. And so, they don't call a doctor. You're immediately a celebrity. So I'll never forget that, the very next day I got, we've got a little bus line or whatever. And I got on there and one of my fellow divinity students was on there. And the minute I stepped on the bus, I mean, her eyes just lit up big and she was like, Speedo Guy. I mean, the name had already stuck. I mean, not that it's that creative, but the name had already stuck. Everybody and the whole bus, once they figured out it was me and that I was the guy that had done it, I mean, they lost their minds. So yeah, it was great.
Goodness.
That's unbelievable.
Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. Game Day will have a lot more on this. Enjoy. I don't know. Your son in a Speedo. I don't know. Have fun.
Go Duke. Thanks, guys.
The Divinity School guy in a Speedo. It's just like a very interesting thought. Okay, so we talk about throwing out the records and rivalries, and you really can in this Duke-UNC matchup, because if you look at the numbers, over the last 100 meetings, they've split them exactly 50 apiece, and Duke only holds a slight edge in points with 17 total more.
Silly.
So it's wild when you think about how even this matchup. So since it is pretty even, I thought we would take a look at some of the best finishes in this rivalry's history, shall we? Of course. 2004, Duke is at number 1, Chapel Hill. Roy Williams' first Duke-UNC game as a head coach. We're in OT. Rashad McCants ties it with the 3, but then it's Chris Duhon time. He goes coast to coast, reverse layup, 6 seconds left, and UNC, they can't answer.
That was a really
sad story.
That was a good one. You go back to about 10 years before that, 95, Coach K, actually on a leave of absence for this one with back problems. So this UNC team, you got to remember Rasheed Wallace, Jerry Stackhouse, UNC Sergei Zwicker goes to the line, chance to ice the game in overtime, misses both. Jeff Capel, the current Pitt coach, comes back down with a runner to send it to double overtime. Steve Wojciechowski there could not answer with the shot. You see Zwicker happy there.
The graphics are so good.
Yeah.
I just love the graphics. Okay, I don't know if you know this guy, Austin Rivers. He may or may not have gotten in a fight a couple of years ago. Duke trails by 2. Time winding down. It's good as time expires, and Duke would go on to upset by C.J. McCollum in the first round of the NCAA tournament that year. I mean, that was amazing.
I'll tell you, this was amazing too. Was that the shot or was this a shot too? Because it was just silly. Trey Jones, 2020, COVID not a thing yet. Duke trailed by 2. Jones intentionally missed that free throw you just saw. We're headed to OT once again. Jones at the line, misses the second. He's short on the follow attempt. Was it a pass? Was it a shot? I don't know. Dukies win on the road.
You know who everybody hates? Christian Laettner. He has a chance to tie it. He can't. Eric Montross grabs the board. Duke trying to foul. They can't. Misses the bunny. Bobby Hurley headed back the other way, and Laettner wants the ball again. Gets in the lane. Back iron. No good. Dickie V, our guy, he can't believe himself. I mean, okay, so I feel like this isn't that long ago. I mean, I know it's 1992. It doesn't feel like it's that long ago, but look at the graphics and how different they are. I cannot get over that part. It is absolutely wild. Do you hate Christian Laettner?
I don't hate anybody, Kristen. We love on this show.
Okay, so obviously we have to pick in this matchup. Who do you have, UNC or Duke?
I'm going UNC. I know it's going to be an unpopular pick for the Duke fans out there. Of course, UNC's won 3 in a row inside Cameron. They're just so veteran-led. Armando Bacot's averaging, I think, almost 18 and 11.5. I'm going to go UNC here in the upset.
You know what Duke fans, alums, etc. say about UNC?
What do they say?
You know the saying, like it's one of their trolling saying, other than saying, door hole is for Duke, right? Mm-hmm. Duke fans like to say, bleed grown-up blue.
Grown-up? You got to specify.
So I'm going to go with Duke, only because I have a lot of former Duke or like volleyball players that played at Duke that are like really good friends with me. I feel like if I was ever on tape saying that I feel like in this matchup specifically, UNC was going to win, I don't care who's playing on the other side. I don't care who you got. I have to pick Duke no matter what. So I'm gonna take Duke. And I feel like they have to break that streak, right? They can't have UNC win 4 in a row in Cameron Indoor. That's bad.
One would think the problem with Duke right now has just been the injuries. I mean, Jeremy Roach has been out. They've been relying on Kyle Filipowski so much, but he's been great.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. If you're there, I'm jealous. It's going to be a really good one. We will be back next week. Reese, a man of the people.
Ready for action, up in the mix, the main attraction, you don't wanna miss. Ready for action, up in the mix, the main attraction, you don't wanna miss. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this?